Canberra, thank you. Well, still in Canberra, Labor is proposing an overhaul of the National Redress scheme in a bid to fast-track payments to victims. Joining us live now is the Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services, Burney. Appreciate your time.
Hi, Ash.
Why is it actually taking so long to clear that backlog of processing applications?
Well, that is a question you would need to put to the government, but certainly looking at Clan, who is one of the groups that take care of many care leavers, looking at their submission, and my understanding is that the process is very bureaucratic, it's very complex, and I think one of the big issues is that many survivors are getting very old, many have pre-existing health conditions, and that is why Labor is arguing that there should be an early release scheme, much like the Scottish model, where people who are over a certain age or people who are unwell actually get their money released early, or some of their money released early, and then the adjustments are made later.
I know you also want to amend the laws to require the Minister to name any institution that hasn't signed up to the scheme. To be fair, though, the Minister hasn't been shying away from doing exactly that. The name and shaming aspect of this is a pretty strong tool the government has at its disposal, along with that ability to revoke charitable and tax statuses.
Well, the government, and I have to stress, Ash, that I want to work collaboratively with the government on this. This is not about point scoring. This is about being true to the recommendations of the original Royal Commission, and also taking into account where survivors are at this point in time. And the government has named a number of institutions. There are many that haven't been named, and I'm not aware whether the tax deductibility has been affected by any of those organisations. But I accept what you're saying, that the government has talked about naming and shaming. I want to see that broader, and I want to see the tax deductibility of a number of organisations taken away to force them to shame. I also want to see that those institutions actually are taxed so that they, as if they are paying into the scheme. This is completely unacceptable, that there are responsible organisations who are in existence today, some of them very large organisations, that take no responsibility for their past, and that's not appropriate.
I understand, though, the federal government can't make unilateral changes to the scheme. Changes have to be agreed to by the Commonwealth, the states and the territories. Are the states on board? Could this actually risk slowing down the process?
Well, I noticed that the Commonwealth has done that bit of scaremongering this morning, that Labor's reforms could mean that no one gets anything, and that's just a nonsense. I mean, I have been around the circles of government and in one way or another for the last 30 years, and I understand the importance of negotiation. I understand the importance of who's party to this scheme, the Commonwealth and the states. But I am also absolutely aware that the people that are the actual victims of some absolutely horrendous things, Ashleigh, things that, you know, are unspeakable, have to be part of the equation, and I am attempting to make that the case.
Burney, I'm keen for your thoughts on the front page of the West Australian newspaper today. It says, 11-year-old takes own life after her alleged rapist is given bail. The young Indigenous girl was apparently left traumatised after her alleged abuser was granted bail. She didn't feel safe with him out on the streets. Do remand laws need to be strengthened for those charged with sexual abuse? How do we stop this sort of thing? You talked about unspeakable horrors. I mean, this is one of them.
Yes. This is an unspeakable horror, and the trauma experienced by that young girl was clearly far too much for her to bear. States and territories are responsible for bail laws, but I have advocated for a long time that there needs to be a very close look at bail laws at that jurisdictional level to see whether in fact they are still appropriate, and how long it has been since bail laws were looked at. But, you know, the point that you're making, Ashleigh, is the absolute important point, is that the trauma of this young woman and the tragedy of youth suicide has to be seen in the context of a broader discussion around bail and how that applies at the state and territory level.
Yeah, an 11-year-old committing suicide is just shocking and something that nobody around this country would like to read on the front page of the paper in the morning. It's
absolutely gut-wrenching and hard to get your head around that someone so young who has been dealt some terrible blows in her life felt that her only alternative was the actions that she took is pause for everyone, not only community members but political people in the political arena on any side that you're on, to take a good hard look at what's happening for young people.
Just finally, unfortunately, we know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people do continue to be overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Today, Queensland's LNP leader, Deb Frecklington, has unveiled what is a pretty controversial plan to introduce a juvenile curfew to try and tackle rising youth crime, particularly in far north Queensland. This trial would see children under the age of 14 banned from being out on the streets without a good reason beyond 8 p.m. in Townsville and Cairns, and for teenagers between 15 and 17, that curfew then extends to 10 p.m. Is that a good idea? Would you throw your support behind that?
I would not throw my support behind that. I think that the idea of curfews is rolled out very regularly if there is a difficult challenge, particularly with young people. What I would advocate very strongly is some further explanation from the LNP in Queensland on just how this is going to apply. And the other thing, of course, Ashleigh, is that there is already the capacity for people, young people on bail in Queensland, to be put on a curfew. And I know that in the state that I come from, New South Wales, that does apply in some cases. The other thing I would actually say is that the issue of youth crime has some very deep reasons, and the important thing is not a quick fix and a politically expedient fix at that, but some very serious work around case management of those young people, and to see whether, in fact, what's being offered to those young people make any sense to them.
Linda Burney, appreciate you joining us live there in Canberra. Thank you.
Thanks.